When asked to find the slope, by far the easiest approach is really just doing it by hand. So you want to identify two really key and obvious points. For example, I wouldn't want to pick a point like this because it's not on a corner. It's a little bit complicated. I would much rather pick a point like -2, 0, because it's on a corner of a box, if you will. And let's say this one, which is 1, 2. Now, it doesn't matter whether you start with this lower point and work your way to the higher one or vice versa, as long as you keep in mind that if you go up, it's a positive. If you go down, it's negative. If you go right, it's positive. If you go left, it's negative. And that should be pretty intuitive based on the fact that we know that this is the positive x-axis to the right, negative x-axis to the left, positive y-axis is above, and the negative y-axis is below. So from this point, I'm going to go up 2, and then to the right 3, both of which were positive directions. And I get my answer of 2/3. I can just type that in and be done. If instead you wanted to go from the higher point and work your way down to this lower one, I would do the same thing, but notice I'm going down 2, so a negative direction, and left 3, also a negative direction. So 2 negatives make a positive. My answer is still 2/3. And that makes sense because the line is rising from left to right. If instead it were falling from left to right, that would be consistent with a negative slope. Now, if instead you preferred to do it by hand, so we still have those same points, 1, 2, and we're going to go ahead and do slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And it doesn't matter whether you do 0 minus 2 or 2 minus 0, you just got to be consistent. So if I choose 2 minus 0, starting with this y, then in the denominator, I have to start with this x. So 1 minus a -2, in other words, 1 plus 2, and I still get 2 over 3. Finally, if for some reason you're like, well, how do I do it on Desmos? I think it's good to be comfortable with it, although definitely just doing it with the graphing approach I think was the easiest approach. But what you could do is put into a table by pressing plus, table, and just typing in whichever points you want. So like, for example, we said -2, 0, and then we also said 1, 2, and then you click this regression, and by default it goes to linear, and that's what we want anyways. And so notice we have this equation, and it gives us the slope, and you could absolutely type that in, or if you know what the fraction equivalent is, you could type that in. But notice you could type this in a couple different ways. You could do point, and then just type in as many 6s as it'll permit you. You can do 5 digits, so 4 and a decimal, or you could do rounding. What we did previously was called truncating. This is rounding. Obviously, you could also choose to have a 0 in front, and you could do truncating like this or rounding. Any of those are acceptable answers.